Good morning. I'm humbled to be given this opportunity to share with you some perspectives on how to strengthen governance and accountability for farmers' resiliency. I'll use very few minutes to talk about my organization and what we do to strengthen the position of farmers across the value chain. So we are a private sector member-based apex body, and we are on the ground working with all the horticultural value chain actors, right from farmers to exporters to processors and also service providers in the industry. Our work is towards creating or improving business enabling environment in the industry, and in that regard we work a lot with the government of Tanzania and also development partners to ensure that policy related challenges and also operational procedures are identified and addressed. But also we work a lot towards enhancing the technical capacity of our farmers, and also on issues related to market and trade. We provide farmers with timely but also affordable logistic support services through our logistic company, Taha Fresh. And we are also a one-stop shop for information about horticulture in the country. We mobilize resources and partnerships, and we use these partnerships to actually identify issues and address problems. We build market support infrastructure for our rural farmers, and we also establish public-private practical training centers for information or technical dissemination in a sustainable way. So going back to the topic, the most important factor to consider today is that time is of essence, and that time for action is now. We as change agent, we have really to be able to interpret what we are discussing in these rooms into smart actions, country-led actions on the ground to strengthen the position of our farmers. And in the past two days, we've been talking about the number of shocks that are hitting our farmers, but I will dwell more on the business enabling environment aspects that are affecting farmers today. And most of the time, unpredictable policies and sharp transition between policies are some of the factors that leave our farmers with irreparable losses and also cause a lot of frustration in business community. High cost of doing business is also a critical issue facing a business community in Africa, which is contributed by the inefficiencies and complexities of our systems and procedures, complexities in the rules and regulations, and also complexities of the people that we deal with. There is also the question of inadequate capacity both in the public and the private sector institution, high levels of corruption, but also taxation system. Agriculture in Tanzania is one of the heavily taxed industry, and also there are the issues of bureaucracy and poor coordination. So in order to create a strong position of our farmers so that farmers could navigate competitively in this challenging environment, I have 6 key recommendations that I would need to put forward. One is the approach we take when we deal with farmers, having the right perspective about farmers when we engage with them in a more responsible and accountable manner. Sometimes we detach farmers from the private sector, concept. And as a matter of fact, there is no private sector in absentia of a farmer, and they form the majority in the business community. And so our work as partners is to ensure that they have a very strong position across the business value chains. Another concept that I would want to push forward here is the issue of how we perceive farmers. Not all farmers are the same, and an approach that has worked best in Malawi or in Ethiopia does not necessarily guarantee maximum efficiency in Tanzania. And I want to build on what the IFPRI president mentioned the other day on the need for us to build on local knowledge and local capacities. When we deal with farmers, there is also another very important aspect that we have to consider. We have to make sure that we are putting emphasis on the relationship between the big and small. In most cases, when we design interventions, we keep focus on smallholder farmers and leaving the big guys out of the question. That approach will not necessarily guarantee sustainability to smallholder farmers. So if we are to strengthen smallholder farmer resiliency, then it is very, very important that we create and foster very strong interfacing between the big and small and create strategies, around them. This is how our smallholder farmers will gain from innovative technologies. This is how our smallholder farmers will also access a reliable market, and this is how our smallholder farmers will also become sustainable. There's another concept of PPP, which is actually regarded as the most viable way of addressing some of all these shocks that we've been talking about. But most of the time as partners, when we talk of PPP, we keep focus and confine ourselves to the public-private partnership, forgetting that there are other levels of PPP that are equally important to make the private-public function. And this is public-public partnership, the intra and inter connectivity between the public, the government agencies, and also between the government to government. This is very, very important, making sure that the governments are talking and the agencies are talking. If this is missing, then the public-private it will be very difficult for the public-private to work and yield the timely result. But also there's another level of private-private partnership, which is also very, very important. Mamoudou has mentioned the role of the private sector. So it is also important to mobilize resources, commitment, but also unified voice from the private sector for meaningful engagement with other partners. I'll also touch on the capacity, which is very critical. Addressing the capacity issue in the private and public system. The public sector, the private public sector capacity is very critical in the agricultural transformation agenda, especially in Africa, to mobilize farmers and also strengthen the institutional capacity to operate as business entities in this value chain. But also enough capacity of the public and private partners is also necessary to empower farmers to own all these interventions that we implement on the ground and take them, and we should not just take them as beneficiaries of our programs and projects that we implement. We also need enough capacity to mobilize and align resources. We need enough capacity also to guide, aid, investment, and actions. It must also take, as we talk about governance and accountability, it is very important to put emphasis on the need to implement joint actions and measures to ensure that development support is actually directed towards the targeted group, the farmers. Because most of the time, and in some cases, the big chunk of development resources is actually going to these other activities like administration, meetings, tea, per diems, and you name it. So it is the question of all of us partners to ensure that resources is directed to the vulnerable group and the poor community, and these are the farmers. The last one is the role of the private sector and the government. We need enough capacity in the private sector organization because these are the drivers of change. If you are talking of building resilient farmers, we must also talk of building resilient private sector farmer organizations. Agricultural transformation must be led and driven by the private sector and enabled by the government. So the private sector organization must be in a position to reconfigure or reposition their services and their ways of doing things to come up with the right tools and systems to enable them identify farmers' issues and provide a timely solution to the issues. They must also have the right capacity to mobilize and use partnerships in a meaningful way to solve farmers' problems. The private sector organizations and these farm organizations must also have the right capacity to engage meaningfully with the government as they represent the voice of the farmers at the negotiation table. They must be able to articulate issue with confidence, with clarity, with stability, but also in a professional manner so that we are able to really engage and create win-win advocacy strategies on behalf of our farmers. One of our winning strategy as TAHA, advocacy strategy, is to create champions within the government systems, right from the village, from the district, to the President's office and make sure that we stay very, very close to these people. And eventually, these become our ambassadors in pushing the horticultural agenda forward. And in this way, we've been able to really address quite a number of policy and other operational procedures affecting the business community in the industry. I will not talk much about information because it has been mentioned by the previous speaker. But we, as an organization, we are running what we call a marketing and information system. And we are using the output of the information system to empower our farmers so that they know when exactly to put their seeds on the soil. We also use the output of this system to inform our government partners on what's happening on the industry. We train and build capacity of local government agencies so that they also become our change agents as partners on the ground. I will talk a little bit also, and this is the final comment. 1 minute.
You're far enough away from me, you're okay.
On the role of the government. Quickly, I will stress on the need of capacity, especially in the local government authorities. When we talk of capacities, most of the time we target central government authority, forgetting that the local government authorities, these are the theaters where these policies are being dissected and being enforced. So that we have also to consider empowering LGAs so that they use these policies and not just tools to enforce rules and regulations, but policies are being used by them to facilitate trade. And this is how we can actually build resilient farmers in our countries. Thank you.